Hello, everyone. Today's presentation is titled Neural Control and Coordination, From Reflexes to Reasoning. This is one of the most essential units in human physiology, especially from a NEET exam preparation perspective. We'll look at how the brain, nerves, and reflexes all integrate to help us respond to our environment, from the split-second withdrawal from a hot surface to conscious problem-solving. My goal is to help you not just memorize facts, but understand how the system works, so you can confidently solve even the trickiest NEET questions. Imagine you're walking barefoot and suddenly step on something sharp. You flinch instantly, even before you realize what's happening. That's your nervous system at work. It's built to detect stimuli, process them quickly, and produce an immediate response. This system works alongside the endocrine system, but there's a key contrast. Neural coordination is fast, electrical, and short-term, while hormonal coordination is slow, chemical, and long-term. That's an important NEET comparison. So, whenever you're reading a question, think, is the body reacting fast or slow? Is it voluntary or involuntary? Those clues often lead you to the right answer. The neuron is the structural and functional unit of the nervous system. Every impulse, every reaction begins here. Start with the dendrites, which receive information. The cell body or soma processes it. Look for nissl bodies here, which are unique to the soma and dendrites. The axon then carries the signal away from the soma toward the axon terminals, where it communicates with another cell. What speeds this up is the myelin sheath, produced by Schwann cells, which insulates the axon. The impulse jumps between nodes of Ranvier in a process called saltatory conduction. Here's a neat tip. When you're asked about signal direction, always remember it flows from dendrites to axon terminals. And if you see a match the following question, be prepared to connect neuron parts to their functions. How does a neuron send a signal? That's what we explore here. At rest, a neuron is negatively charged inside, about -70 MV, thanks to more sodium ions outside and potassium ions inside. When stimulated, sodium ions channels open and the membrane depolarizes. Then potassium ions exits, causing repolarization. This brief reversal of charges travels along the axon as a nerve impulse. In myelinated neurons, the impulse skips along. That's saltatory conduction, and it's much faster than unmyelinated conduction. When the signal reaches the end, it jumps across the synapse using neurotransmitters like acetylcholine. Chemical synapses are the most common. A neat point, remember the all or none principle. The neuron either fires completely or doesn't fire at all. And during depolarization, it's sodium ions rushing in, not potassium ions. The CNS is our control center, made up of the brain and spinal cord. The cerebrum handles voluntary actions, thinking, learning, memory. The cerebellum coordinates balance and posture. The medulla oblongata controls involuntary actions, like heartbeat and breathing. Each has a specific function, and that's what NEET questions often test. Then there's the spinal cord, which links the brain to the body and also manages reflexes. Reflexes don't need the brain to act. The spinal cord is enough. That's why reflexes are so fast. If you get a function-based MCQ, like which part of the brain maintains balance, look for cerebellum. Keep a mini chart in your mind mapping parts to functions. The peripheral nervous system, or PNS, consists of 12 cranial and 31 spinal nerves. It connects the CNS to limbs and organs. The autonomic nervous system is part of the PNS and manages involuntary actions. It's split in two. Sympathetic, fight or flight, increases heart rate, dilates pupils. Parasympathetic, rest and digest, slows heart rate, stimulates digestion. Here's a neat strategy. In a question, if the body is responding to stress, think sympathetic. If it's recovering or conserving energy, think parasympathetic. Often, NEET questions will describe a scenario and ask which division is active. Let's compare reflex and voluntary actions. Reflexes are automatic and protective, no conscious thought involved. The reflex arc follows this path: receptor sensory neuron spinal cord, interneuron, motor neuron effector. In contrast, voluntary actions involve the cerebrum and are consciously controlled. Here's a neat tip. Reflexes bypass the brain to save time. And remember, in a reflex arc, the inner neuron never contacts the effector directly. That's a common MCQ trick. The eye and ear are specialized sensory organs under neural control. In the eye, rods detect light/dark, cones detect color. Fovea has the sharpest vision. The blind spot lacks photoreceptors. The lens changes shape to focus, controlled by ciliary muscles. In the ear, the cochlea houses the organ of Corti for hearing. The semicircular canals help with balance and detect rotational motion. Neat tip: know the path of light, cornea, retina, and sound, pinna, cochlea. You may also be asked which part of the eye lacks photoreceptors. That's the blind spot. Now, let's touch on common neural disorders. Parkinson's involves a dopamine deficiency, leading to tremors. Alzheimer's causes neuron degeneration, mainly in memory areas. Epilepsy is due to abnormal electrical activity in the brain. Here's your neat shortcut. Match neurotransmitters to disorders. For example, dopamine left-right arrow Parkinson's. These match-the-pair-style questions are frequent in the NEET exam. Alright folks, let's talk about the high-yield stuff, the kind of topics NEET exams just love to throw at you. First up, neurotransmitters. You want to remember the big players, acetylcholine and dopamine. If you see a question about muscle movement or Parkinson's, one of these is probably the answer. Next, the brain coverings. Don't forget the meninges. They come in 3 layers: dura mater, the tough outer one, arachnoid, and pia mater, which hugs the brain surface closely. These are popular in label the diagram questions. Then we've got synapses. Sure, both electrical and chemical synapses exist, but in humans, chemical synapses are way more common. So if you're asked which is typical, go with chemical. Now about reflex arcs, this one's a classic. Remember, reflex actions are super fast because they involve the spinal cord, not the brain. That's why you pull your hand back before even realizing something is hot. And finally, the myelin sheath. What does it do? It insulates the axon and speeds up signal conduction. If you see anything about rapid transmission, think myelin. Here's a neat tip before we move on. Make sure you practice labeling diagrams, especially neurons and synapses. And be prepared for matching column questions. NEET papers love those for this section. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more videos.